Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Mia Collett, the Business Manager for the Health and Social Care Division at Panoramic Associates, and welcome to Public Health Spotlight. Today, we are joined by Jane Bethea. Hi, if you could please start by introducing yourself.
Hi, I'm Jane Bethea. I'm Director of Public Health for North Northamptonshire, and I was until recently a consultant in public health in Nottinghamshire.
Brilliant, thank you. Can you please provide an overview of your journey to becoming a Director of Public Health?
Okay, that's a bit of a not a bumpy journey, but perhaps a different sort of journey. So I did public health specialty training a number of years ago now. I won't say how many, but a number of years ago. And qualified as a consultant and then did academic training. So my very first consultant job, I was also an associate professor of public health at Leicester Medical School, and I taught medical students public health, and I worked as a public health consultant at the same time. So I worked in local authorities, but I also worked in the university sector. And then a few years ago now, I went into the NHS. So my background is in the NHS anyway. So it was a little bit like going home in some respects, going back into the NHS. And I went to a local large mental health and community trust in Nottinghamshire, where I worked as a consultant in public health, and at the same time was training programme director for East Midlands Public Health Training. I've always had many hats and different jobs, and did that for a number of years. Absolutely loved it. Nottingham's a fantastic place to work. Nottinghamshire is a fantastic place to work. And then started to think, well, actually, I love strategic working. I was working across the system at that point, doing lots of work with the Integrated Care Board, but across the whole system. And I thought, this is really what I like. I like looking at what's the art of the possible, what can we do? And so I thought, maybe it's time now to look for a DPH role.
You previously worked at Nottinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust as a consultant in public health, and this is your first Director of Public Health role. How's the role been so far for you? Is it what you expected?
It has been what I've expected in some ways, because I knew I was going into an almost new authority. So North Northamptonshire Council has only been in existence for about 3 years now, and certainly hadn't had a substantive DPH in that period before I started. So it was kind of what I expected, because I knew I'd have to grow the team. I knew I had a lot of work to do in different areas, but I'm also Director of Communities and Leisure, as well as Public Health. That's been more interesting than perhaps I initially thought, but I guess that has been a different sort of journey, because I know lots more about library moves than I thought I would ever know. But actually it's been fantastic, because there's a really clear read across from public health to things like community safety, to adult learning, to the library service, to leisure services. So it has been a learning curve, but I will say it's been quite a lot of fun as well.
Excellent, thank you. And in a bit more detail, how would you describe the role as a DPH?
I think as a Director of Public Health, your role really is to be the glue, I think, across the system. Local authorities are really well placed to tackle health inequalities and to do a lot of the work that we need to do in public health. But they do need to work with other organisations, particularly the health sector, but also the criminal justice sector and a whole range of different areas. And being a DPH is really about saying, well, if we want to get to this point, we want to achieve this particular goal, we need to work in a very joined up way and to really glue those bits of the system together to get that right. And so really I would say most of what we do, and we talk about the science and the art of public health, a lot of what we do is the art, because we're influencing without authority. We're trying to say to people, let's try something different, let's work together in a different sort of way. So that's really the role. The role is about understanding public health principles. So you've got the robustness, you've got the systematic approach you can apply to everything, it brings credibility, etc. But then you've also got to be that person who can influence the system and say to people, I think if we do this, we could see this benefit. And guess what? This is how we might be able to demonstrate that.
As you mentioned, you're currently the Director of Public Health, Communities and Leisure of North Northamptonshire Council. Why did you choose this organisation?
I have to be honest, I wasn't necessarily sure I wanted to be a Director of Public Health before I saw this job. I was just really attracted to the fact it was a new organisation. I'd heard from a colleague working in West Northants that there was some really fantastic opportunities, and I also just really liked the idea that you could start again. You could start not from scratch, because the people who'd worked there before had done a huge amount of work and done a really good job, but I knew it was attractive in terms of workforce development. I love workforce development. I think I'm an educator at heart, really. So I could go in, work on that team, develop the relationships, also look at how we can bring together different parts of the council around public health. I think when I went to speak to the council, it felt extremely positive, a lot of energy. And also I'm on corporate leadership team, and being in that position is fantastic. I've got amazing colleagues in the rest of the team. The chief executive is full of energy, full of lots of ideas.
That's great,
and having that support and thinking, well, there's a lot to learn, but if I feel supported in that environment, then that's really quite attractive. So with all those things together, I basically thought, well, I might as well give it a go.
And here you are.
Here I am.
Here you are. Brilliant, thank you. And the next question is, what is unique about the population in North Northamptonshire Council that brings you both challenges but also opportunities?
The population of Northants is really interesting. We are the single biggest growth area in the country. So if we look at the two census periods, there's been about a 13.5% increase in the population. So I straight away, as a data lover myself, I was like really interested in, that's really interesting. And on top of that, you've got sort of big towns, conurbations, and really rural areas. It's incredibly mixed. We've got some really quite deprived areas with significant challenges, and then we've got what look like really affluent rural areas, but of course they have their challenges as well. So in a way, it's like everything you could look for in public health challenge in one geography. But the opportunities are huge because we have an amazing voluntary community sector. We have a really good working relationship with our health colleagues, with the police. There's lots of energy, I would say, in the area. So that brings great opportunity, but it's never a dull day.
You mentioned that North Northampton's population has increased quite significantly in the last couple of years. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are more attracted to your area and geography?
Well, clearly we are amazing. We're a beautiful place. I do feel like I'm the tourist information for North Northamptonshire. But no, I think that, I mean, in all seriousness, it's beautiful. Lots of people drive through Northamptonshire as a whole. But going to North Northampton, beautiful, beautiful place. There's affordable housing. There's really good links to a whole different parts of the country. Lots of businesses are relocating to that area because there's lots of opportunity. And we have seen particular increases in some parts of the population. So we have quite a big Eastern European population now. But I think it's the opportunity that it offers as a place. And you can live somewhere where you can be in a really beautiful country park very easily. But then you've got, a fantastic shopping centre in Rushden Lakes around the corner. So I think it's just an attractive offer.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for your answer. And the next question is, as you were previously in the NHS, how have you found it adapting from the NHS to a local authority setting?
Well, I've worked in and out of universities, local authorities, and the NHS for 27 years. And what I would say is, going back into the NHS, there were real things about the local authority that I missed. I think the idea that in the local authority, there's such a diversity of what you offer as an organisation, that you end up working with hugely diverse teams within the organisation. So that was really nice. I missed that, and I've liked going back to that. The NHS is, you don't have the political dimension, which is, of course, all jobs are political, of course they are, but what you don't have in the NHS is working with elected members and with local councillors, etc. So that was really different going back into that, having been out of it for quite a while. I've really enjoyed it though, and certainly the members I'm working with at North Northampton are really positive and really supportive. But it's different. It's different. The other thing is that I love process, and people say local authorities are full of bureaucracy. Well, actually, it's really important to get that right. And I've really quite liked going to an organisation that's really focused on making those processes as easy as possible, but also as transparent as possible. So that's been something I've really enjoyed in this particular local authority. But I guess overall, it's just working on the same thing, but in a different setting. Because I still work with the hospitals, I still work with the ICB, I still work with primary care, but I'm also working with the council. And that's nice, because it means you've got lots of different perspectives and lots of different allies and partners across the system. So it's nice.
Brilliant, thank you. Northamptonshire County Council was recently split into North and West Northants. How has that affected your role?
Well, that split happened before I started, but it's a huge process splitting a local authority. So Northamptonshire County Council would have been a county council with its boroughs and districts, and now it is two large unitary authorities. And we can't underestimate how complex that is. There's a whole range of things that I've learned through this process in coming into the organisation. One is the incredibly highly technical nature of things like disaggregating IT,
Yeah.
really, really tough. But also people have a sense of where they've worked before. So you will find staff who still feel that they're part of Kettering Borough Council.
Yeah.
That's not existed for about 3 years
Yeah.
now. So you've got that kind of almost supporting people into what is a new organisation. And we've just set up a new initiative, called One Council, which is about trying to really say, we are one council, we are a unitary authority, because it's really tough to make that move. And people have split, some people have geographically moved, some people have moved to where they're based, some teams completely have split, and some haven't. So it has been a challenge. But what I would say from a public health perspective, although we're two teams between West and North, we have a fantastic relationship and we do a lot of things in a shared way.
Okay.
And it's that relationship that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And supporting staff who can feel almost, for some people, it's almost grieving for an organisation that they used to work for, and helping them to think, well, this is a really new, exciting opportunity for me now, which is a nice thing to do because it's quite positive. But you do have to understand that it's people's livelihoods, it's people's passions, and for some people it's been a difficult process.
As you're a fairly new Director of Public Health, how has the ADPH supported you?
I think the ADPH offers a range of opportunities. So there's some quite formal things. So there's networks and there's chats and there's groups you can be involved in, information sharing processes, and mentoring. So I do have a mentor through the ADPH who's been really helpful.
Okay.
But we also have more informal networks that come through it. So we have an East Midlands network of DPHs. And knowing that you can phone somebody or you can email somebody, we're a small world anyway, public health, but it's lovely to be able to say, is there anybody else in the network or even in the country who is also doing communities and leisure, for example, or and having that ability to network with the people through there and to be up to date with information, because the ADPH is really good at making sure that we're up to date with information as it comes through, and facilitating that has been really positive.
Okay.
Because there are some people in the system who've got a huge amount of expertise and experience, and learning from that is just really fantastically helpful.
Seems invaluable. Brilliant, thank you. And the next question is, what is one skill that you wish you would have developed, or one thing you wish you would have known before becoming a Director of Public Health?
I could be silly and say I wish I'd learnt more about the architecture of Collett Weston slate-built library roofs, which has been an issue for me. But no, I think one thing I perhaps would have learnt a little bit more about is perhaps that work around how you make sure that you've got your staffing retention policy in place really, really, really clearly. I've done a lot of work on that. I've had to do a lot of work on a structure was put in place before I started, which was fantastic. But I've had to do a lot of work around what is our long-term vision for staff development and retention. And although I found it really interesting and really helpful, I think that's taken more time than I thought it might take. The other thing which you have to be really on top of is the very many complexities around financial issues and how that is reported, the issues around, for example, the complexities around gender change. There's a whole range of things that you just have to be on top of. But as I've said, with the support you've got from colleagues who are the DPHs and from the Association of Directors of Public Health, that does make that more knowledge-based area much easier, I would say.
You are also the Training Director for East Midlands Public Health. What advice would you give to newly qualified consultants who are also aspiring Directors of Public Health?
Right, okay, so that's a really good question. I would say there's two things I would say, is that one, don't talk yourself out of it.
Okay.
So when people first become a consultant, or even if you've been a consultant for a while, it's really easy to talk yourself out of being a Director of Public Health, of thinking it's a lot of responsibility, it looks really complex, etc., etc. But actually the skills you have as a consultant is the fundamental skill set you need to be a director. And you have to remember that you've been trained and you've done all of your work for a reason, and that you're very capable of doing that. So that thing of having confidence in yourself and investing in yourself so that you do that leadership and training opportunity. You do that, you do give yourself time to do that, not just the day job. You've got to develop yourself. I think that's really important. And I think the other thing is look for opportunity. It's got to be the right place. So not every place is the right place for an individual to be a Director of Public Health. but believe in yourself so that when the opportunity does come up and you think this is exciting, this is the sort of place I want to be, that you have the confidence just to go for it.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned the foundation, so being at consultant level with foundations. What are the key differences between being a consultant and being a director that you've identified so far?
I think being a consultant is probably slightly more technical in
Okay.
some ways. Some of those technical skills are probably used a little bit more because you are working at a slightly different level, but you're still very strategic, of course, in that role as well. I think you're doing perhaps more line management sometimes as a consultant in public health, both the soft side of that and the more formal side of it. I manage about 7 people, but it's when you're a consultant in public health, sometimes you're technically managing a lot more. As a director of public health, you maybe get less time in terms of supporting trainees, depending on the policy of where you're working. I, at the moment, for example, am supervising somebody in the final year of training. As a consultant, you tend to be able to do more early years of training support. Okay. And if you're like me and you love educational supervision, which I absolutely love, that's different. Doesn't mean you don't get exposure to those trainees, which is great. So there are some differences, but ultimately the skill set is the same. It's that science side of it, that robustness, that understanding populations, all of the stuff you train for. And then the art side of it is that how you take that and develop that into a change, develop that into an idea and bring other people with you. So not a huge difference, I would say. If your skill set as a consultant, if you're confident in that skill set, you should have the confidence to think a DPH is the next step for me.
Right, that must be really reassuring for our listeners to hear. So thank you so much, Jane. A really, really helpful conversation. And thank you to everyone who's listened.